Hello and welcome to the program. Violence against women is considered a grave violation of basic human rights. The UN, as well as countless other organizations around the world, have spent decades mobilizing civil society and government agencies to put an end to violence against women and girls. In the studio, we're joined by Anastasiia Dieieva, Ukraine's Deputy Internal Affairs Minister, who's been working to end gender-based violence in the country. Hello and thank you for joining us.
Hello.
So recently you've announced that a police network is going to be created to detect people who are suffering domestic violence and to detect people who are doing domestic violence. What is this police network about and how is it going to work?
So basically what we are proposing is police network on combating domestic violence now, because as you know, in Ukraine, on the current stage, we're a bit limited in our legal instruments because the Istanbul Convention is not ratified, and due to this, we still do not have the national law on criminalization of the domestic violence. This is the first one.
I'm sorry, what are the main stumbling blocks on the way of ratifying the Istanbul Convention?
I guess this will be a very good question to our parliament. I hope that soon we will really ratify the Istanbul Convention and we will move forward, because I believe that sooner or later, this issue is appearing more in our society, especially due to the fact that we still have a military conflict which influence on our life and which influence on the, let's say, stability, sustainability of our society. So basically what we are proposing as a law enforcement, we want to create mobile groups on combating domestic violence, which will be well-trained, which will have a very good workable, I would say, close cycle of the cooperation, started from the call to 102, the 911, if I may say so, and ending up with the cooperation with social service, medical care, different shelters and many others. So we're proposing a new approach of identification and reaction to the domestic violence. We will start this pilot project from 3 pilot regions. It will be Kiev, Darninsky Rayon, it will be Odessa, Malinovsky Rayon, and Luganska Oblast, Severodonetsk.
When is the network going to start working full-time? Approximately, yes.
Currently, we're on the stage of, let's say, internal recruitment process of the interviewing of people, because we believe that police officers from different units, patrol police, juveniles, district, criminal block investigators, they should be motivated to work in this. Secondly, this police network will mostly be from combined from women police officers.
Why women police officers?
Well, there are lots of statistics which shows that women police officers first are not as, let's say, perceived as aggressors when they come to crime. So basically they can decrease the level of aggression on the spot. The second one is the communication skills and, of course, empathy. But the third one is rather a joke, I would say, but still, my colleague from Washington, D.C., who is a gender advisor, she told me about it, that when women and men are going through the training program, specialized training program on domestic violence, women are the only who really make it in action. So,
well, there you go.
Yeah.
Is it really possible to detain a person who is performing domestic violence against his other family members? Is it really possible in Ukraine to detain this person at this point right now?
Again, the problem is in classification of the crimes, because now we're, I mean, like by the law, the domestic violence is classified as an administrative case. It should be criminalized as well. So we should understand that domestic violence is a crime and you will take a responsibility for it. Of course, if, for example, patrol police come, they can hold the offender for several hours, but it doesn't solve the issue, right?
Of course, it's not going to stop a person from performing it once again.
This is why we want to install this stable interaction between shelters, between crisis center, medical cares, not only think about offenders, but also to think about the victim, which is very important. To share the value and to share the philosophy that safety of the victim is the key element will make all the system work.
speaking about the victims, usually it is thought that women are the victims of the domestic violence, but the actual statistics shows that men are also prone to being assaulted at home. How can that be battled?
Not only women and men, children, and also different other groups of risk. In Ukraine, for example, again, consequently, we have the military conflict and we have rather unstable, sometimes economic tension, I would say, on the society. Of course, we can see both. We can see 60% of women who suffer from domestic violence, but also up to 10–13% of victims can be men too. This is due to the latest statistic of UNFPA. So also we have rather high statistic of children involved in this conflict. So basically, I think that domestic violence is an issue that can influence on each and everyone.
Does Ukraine keep official statistics of the victims of domestic violence?
Let's not speak only in numbers, because numbers are important, but this is not the only important element. We should leave the quantity statistics and we should rather develop a very efficient KPIs, the indicators which can really measure the real situation on the ground. In law enforcement, in medical care, how much does it cost? The domestic violence in Ukraine. If we will know the real number, I mean the real cost in economic, let's say, sphere, that will make sense to us more, right? So what I propose is not speak only in numbers, but also to speak more in quality. Quality of service we get from police, quality of service we get from social workers and medical care, and quality of safety which victim, no matter women or men or children, can get.
Domestic violence is an issue that is usually suppressed, not only in Ukraine, but in many other countries. What can be done in Ukraine to make the victims of domestic violence speak up?
This is a good question, and I believe that if we will realize that domestic violence is a responsibility, I mean, like the combating domestic violence is a responsibility of each and every citizen in Ukraine, of government, of law enforcement and Ministry of Social Policy, of civil society, of international organization, which, by the way, are so much supportive to us now, which help us to develop the infrastructure, which help us to develop the best model on the governmental level and implement it on the ground. And of course, what is very important is citizens, if they will do the step forward and want to know more about what is domestic violence, how to combat it, and to know that there is someone who can take care of you if you got in trouble, that will be very important. Starting from school, by the way.
That is interesting. Thank you so much for the informative conversation, and thank you so much for coming. In the studio with us was Anastasiia Dieieva, the Minister's Deputy of Ukraine Internal Affairs. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.